It's 8:45. This is the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. The news edited by J. Yogaraj, read by Soundithavam. The President says his task to restore Sri Lanka's economy is nearing its end. Adani Green Energy to develop wind power stations in Mena and Punareen. General Shavendra Silva advises Sri Lankan veterans to avoid mercenary service abroad. Sri Lanka tourism will receive historic double in 2024. 2,100 new Gramaninadari officials appointed. The COPF summons Public Security Secretary and Immigration CG. News overseas, Trump classified documents trial postponed. In sports, Sri Lanka's Tuskers scale new heights in rugby rankings. President Ranil Wickremesinghe says that his task to restore the country's economy is nearing its end and that they have to now focus on the next step. Quoting, "My task as president has been to restore the economy, in other words, to stabilize the country. That task is nearing an end and we have to now focus on the next step," unquote, he said. Quoting, "We can't carry on with this economic model which certainly hasn't worked," he said, adding that Sri Lanka has transformed itself into an export-oriented economy and a highly competitive economy. For this purpose, Wickremesinghe stated that the government will be introducing legislation in Parliament which will ensure that all government policies focus on the transformation to a highly competitive export-oriented economy. He said the bill will most probably be gazetted next week. The President revealed that one of the items in the bill in carrying out this transformation is to ensure that Sri Lanka achieves net zero emissions by 2050, and he said that we will achieve it before that, and Sri Lanka can do it, he declared. He made these comments while addressing the inaugural session of the Sri Lanka Climate Summit, which commenced yesterday at the Shangri-La, Colombo. President Wickremesinghe emphasized ongoing efforts to enact unified legislation addressing environmental protection and climate change. He highlighted the government's commitment to crafting economic policies geared not only towards fostering export-oriented competitiveness, but also towards transitioning to a green economy, aiming to achieve net zero by 2050. The Cabinet has granted consent to develop two 484-megawatt wind power stations in Mena and Punareen, the Government Information Department said yesterday. The approval of the Cabinet of Ministers was granted in March 2022 to enter into a Memorandum of Understanding with Adani Green Energy Limited of India to develop wind power stations in Mena and Punareen. Accordingly, a negotiation committee had been appointed by the Cabinet of Ministers to evaluate the project proposal furnished by the said company. Sri Lanka tourism will achieve a historic double in terms of revenue and number of arrivals for 2024, and the year will go down in history as the best year for tourism, said the Director General, Sri Lanka Tourism Development Authority, BHR Sarifuddin. He said they were targeting around 2 million arrivals, and with the July and the end of the year numbers showing high growth, they will pass the 2.3 million mark. As anticipated, the month of April, May and June is the low season, along with the forthcoming October. But all other months, including August, for the Kandy pageant, will show high arrivals. He said that Sri Lanka has now attracted 806,698 tourists, and from 1st to 5th May, recording 22,047, with India and Russia being the top two markets. He said that they've already achieved $1.5 billion revenue up to the end of April 2024, and they hope this will climb to around $5 billion by the end of 2024, making it the second highest forex generator for Sri Lanka. Asked if the recent visa on arrival issue was a concern, he said it was, but now since it's revoked, there would not be any negative impact. Our marketing team has been cleared and any bad patches in this regard successfully, he said. He said the removal of the minimum room rate at the end of this month too would be good for tourism. This news broadcast comes to you from the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation.
A comprehensive banking services package with a branded checkbook as well as debit and credit card exclusively for you.
In light of the emerging reports detailing the involvement of Sri Lankan veterans in foreign mercenary forces, the Chief of Defence Staff, General Shavendra Silva, has issued a heartfelt plea to his fellow veterans, urging them to resist the allure of mercenary service. Quoting, "These veterans, once the pride of our nation, have succumbed to the seductive promises of riches and adventure, forsaking the values that define us as warriors and patriots," unquote, General Silva said in a statement yesterday. He also stated that as members of the Armed Forces of Sri Lanka, quoting, "We are bound by duty, honour and a deep sense of loyalty to our motherland. We have stood valiantly in the face of adversity, sacrificing for the greater good of our nation. Yet there are whispers of temptation, enticing some of our comrades to forsake their loyalty for the allure of easy money and transient glory," unquote. He also said mercenary warfare is not a noble pursuit. It is a path fraught with peril and moral ambiguity. Those who choose to walk this path risk tarnishing the reputation of our esteemed military. As members of a victorious military who defeated the most ruthless terrorist organization in the world, we must uphold the honor and integrity of our profession. The Committee on Public Finance, COPF, has summoned the Secretary to the Ministry of Public Security and the Controller General of Immigration and Emigration for an inquiry, says the chairman of the COPF, MP Harsha De Silva. In a post on X, formerly Twitter, he said, the COPF summoned the Secretary to the Ministry of Public Security, along with the Controller General of Immigration and Emigration, for a balanced inquiry into the ongoing visa fiasco. Whilst it is customary for all public finance-related legislation be routed through COPF, this strangely was not, the committee chairman further said. That concludes Local News.
Elevate your life with People's Bank Excelsior. A comprehensive banking services package with a branded checkbook as well as debit and credit card exclusively for you.
The main news story is brought to you by Sinhala Vedamahatmya.
The court order issued preventing the Executive Committee of the Sri Lanka Freedom Party from removing party members Mahinda Amaravira, Duminda Dissanayaka and Lasantha Alagiyawanna from their respective positions has been extended. Accordingly, the interim injunction will be in effect until 15th May on the orders of the Colombo District Court. The attorneys who appeared for the respondents before the court requested for permission to file objections regarding the relevant plaint. Thus, the court, which allowed the respondents' party to file objections related to the plaint, ordered the petition to be recalled on May 15, 2024. A group of individuals, including former President Maithripala Sirisena and Acting General Secretary of the SLFP, Sarathi Dushmantha Maithripala, have been named as respondents of the relevant plaint, which have sought an order declaring that the decision taken by the party's executive committee to expel them without any disciplinary investigation to be unlawful. That was the main news story.
The main news story was brought to you by Sinhala Vedamahatmya.
Moving on to Watchlight. Kandy District Community Disease Specialist Dr. Krishantha Masachi said that according to Entomological Service, the prevalence of dengue in the Kandy district is likely to increase in the oncoming month. He said that the Kandy Municipal Council Health Medical Division has been included in the 4 dengue high-risk zones designated by the National Dengue Control Unit, and 15 dengue cases were identified in this division last April. The doctor mentioned this while presenting data on the progress of dengue control at the Coordination Committee meeting held at the Kandy District Secretariat. He also said that 9 people have died of dengue this year, but no dengue death has been reported from the Kandy district so far. He emphasized that according to the data of the National Dengue Control Unit, by the end of April this year, 1,547 dengue patients have received treatment in the hospital, and 232 of them have been reported during the month of April. That came to you in Watchlight. Onto a bulletin of world news. Trump classified documents trial postponed. Filipinos plan voyage to supply fishers in South China Sea. And Cambodia's Hun Sen asked Myanmar's junta to speak with Aung San Suu Kyi. A court in the U.S. state of Florida has indefinitely postponed a trial of former President Donald Trump over his handling of classified government documents. Trump is accused of illegally keeping highly classified documents, including those pertaining to nuclear arms and military capabilities, at his home in Florida after he left office in violation of the Espionage Act. A federal court in Florida said on Tuesday it would be imprudent to go through with the trial until numerous procedures needed to handle classified information as evidence have been completed. The trial was scheduled for May 20th, and a new day has not been set. Private groups in the Philippines are planning a mission to give food, oil and other supplies to fishers in the disputed South China Sea. Organizers say about 100 fishing boats of various sizes will sail near Scarborough Shoal next week. China has been stepping up maritime activities in the area, which Manila claims is a traditional fishing ground for Philippine boats. Former Cambodian Prime Minister Hun Sen has been asked the leader of Myanmar's junta for permission to speak with Aung San Suu Kyi. The Cambodian government says Hun Sen made the request in a video call with the Myanmar military's top general Min Aung Hlaing on Tuesday. Hun Sen described detained Nobel laureate Aung San Suu Kyi as a long-time colleague and said the two have discussed many ASEAN-related issues. Back to the headlines of the world news. Trump classified documents trial postponed. Filipinos plan voyage to supply fishers in South China Sea. And Cambodia's Hun Sen asked Myanmar's junta to speak with Aung San Suu Kyi. With that, we conclude this bulletin of world news.
Development news.
The Japanese Minister for Foreign Affairs Yoko Kamikawa visited the Sri Lanka Ports Authority during her recent visit to Sri Lanka. During the visit by the Japanese delegation to the SLPA, discussions centered on the ongoing and future development in the SLPA and the port of Colombo. The Japanese Minister for Foreign Affairs expressed her readiness to offer any necessary assistance and support for the development of the port sector in Sri Lanka. That came to you in Development News.
Moving on with sports news.
Sri Lanka's men's Test rugby team has made significant strides, ascending 4 places in the World Rugby Rankings to clinch the 5th position in Asia. This remarkable climb follows their commanding victory in the recently concluded 4-nation Asian Division 1 rugby tournament last Saturday at the Racecourse Stadium in Colombo. The emerging Lankan Tuskers, previously ranked 44th, excelled in the quadrangle series, where they convincingly defeated neighbouring India and formidable Kazakhstan. Their brilliant performance propelled them to the 41st rank, establishing their position as the 5th best team in Asia, trailing behind powerhouses Japan, Hong Kong, Korea and the Philippines. That's sports news. We take a look at business news next.
Go ekathiana youth ekata life eke change ekata niyamata setna aswahagena dakapuhina habakarana youth ekata niyamata setna friendship ekamenna.
The all-new NSB Ithru Mithru account, NSB IAM, a plan for your dream.
Business News, sponsored by National Savings Bank, the safest place for your money.
Lipton Teas and Infusions has agreed terms of a partnership which will result in the transfer of its tea estates in Kenya, Rwanda and Tanzania to Brown's Investments PLC, alongside an agreement that all tea sold by Brown's worldwide will be grown and harvested to a new set of standards covering quality, social and environmental protections. That's business news. Economic news up next.
Business News, sponsored by National Savings Bank, the safest place for your money.
Go ekathiana youth ekata life eke change ekata niyamata setna aswahagena dakapuhina habakarana youth ekata niyamata setna friendship ekamenna.
The all-new NSB Ithru Mithru account, NSB IAM, a plan for your dream.
On to economic news. The Asian Development Bank, ADB, launched the Innovative Finance Facility for Climate in Asia and the Pacific, a landmark guarantee mechanism to scale up the region's climate investment, President ADB Masatsugu Asakawa said. Asakawa said this year the ADB will use the Strategy 2030 midterm review and the Corporate Results Framework for 2025 to 2030 to learn and continue to evolve our support to clients. The ADB will effectively and efficiently use its newly expanded lending capacity to support key priorities along with our members most in need. That's economic news.
Weather report.
The Met Department says that showers or thundershowers will occur at several places in most provinces of the island after 2 p.m. Fairly heavy showers above 75 millimeters are likely at some places in the north-central, Sabrugamo, eastern and Uva provinces. A few showers may occur over the coastal areas of Puttalam to Hambantota via Colombo and Galle during the morning as well. The general public is kindly requested to take adequate precaution to minimize damage caused by temporary localized strong winds and lightning during thunder showers. This weather report was published this evening at 7:30 p.m. and further details could be obtained by visiting the official website of the department. To conclude this bulletin of news, a recap of the headlines. The President says his task to restore Sri Lanka's economy is nearing its end. Adani Green Energy to develop wind power stations in Mannar and Punareen. General Shavendra Silva advises Sri Lankan veterans to avoid mercenary service abroad. Sri Lanka tourism will achieve historic double in 2024. 2,100 new Grama Niladali officials appointed. COPF summons Public Security Secretary and the Immigration CG. Trump classified documents trial postponed. And Sri Lanka's Tuskers scale new heights in rugby rankings. With that, we conclude tonight's news broadcast, and now it's back to your host, Ramesh, to take you to the end of transmission. And well, all set and ready to keep you entertained on Family Choice. All yours, Ramesh.